And we're live.
Well, I'm having a few sound issues tonight, so I apologise in advance. I'm getting a little bit of an echo coming back. So hopefully we'll get through it. But good evening, everybody. Welcome to this very special edition of CBTV. Apologies for the short notice, but we thought it was really important to put this broadcast out tonight in light of the recent news that's come out of Wales, that being that another 4 counties have gone into lockdown. The reason this is significant is because one of the counties that has gone into lockdown is a county in which one of our holiday parks is located. That holiday park, of course, is Park Farm. The county I'm talking about is Denbighshire, and along with Conwy, Flintshire, and I can't think of the other one, the fourth, Wrexham. Those are the 4 counties in North Wales that from Thursday at 6 o'clock will be in lockdown. So what does that mean? How does it affect you as caravan owners at Park Farm? Hopefully in the next 5-10 minutes, I'll try and answer those questions, and any questions which you may have, please feel free to use the chat facility, and Jen will read the questions out to me. So first things first, what does it mean? Well, it means that as of 6 o'clock on Thursday, it will be illegal for anybody to leave or enter the county of Denbighshire without a good reason. And on the Welsh Government website, our owners at Park Farm just recently sent an email in the last few minutes. You'll see a link to that website, and that will give you examples of what they deem to be valid and good reasons versus examples of what they deem to be not valid and not good reasons. I can tell you now from the offset that visiting your caravan is not deemed to be a valid reason for entering the county of Denbighshire. So the same rules apply in Denbighshire as they do in the other counties in Wales. The first county in Wales to go into lockdown was a few weeks ago. That was Caerphilly. It was soon followed by the neighbouring counties, and virtually most of the counties, if you look at a map of Wales, you'll see across the south, most of the counties across the south, with the exception of Monmouthshire to the east, and most of Carmarthenshire, with the exception of Llanelli to the west, are in lockdown. And the same rules now apply to the 4 counties in North Wales. So what we're seeing is this sort of thing going on here, where the only counties, there are more counties in lockdown at the moment in Wales than there aren't in lockdown. So you can see which way it's going, Jem. So what does that mean if you've got a caravan at Park Farm? So what it means is you can't visit the park from 6 o'clock on Thursday. In fact, you can't enter Denbighshire from 6 o'clock on Thursday. This is not guidance, this is legislation, it's law. And if you do enter the county or any of the other counties that are subject to lockdown restrictions and you get caught, you will feel the full force of the law. And I've heard of examples of where this has happened throughout Wales, where it's not just the police, but it's also the local authority have got officers out and about just making sure that people are where they're meant to be and they're not trying to enter the county illegally. So if you are already on Park Farm, if you're sat in your caravan now and you're listening to this, or you arrive to Park Farm before the lockdown takes place, then that is acceptable. So I want to make that clear. So the first thing is, we are not legally obliged to close the park. So because the county is in lockdown restriction, that doesn't mean that we have to close the park. This is different to how it was at the beginning, back in March, when the whole country went into lockdown and businesses had to shut down, and we were compelled by legislation in Wales. They passed specific legislation aimed at the hospitality and tourism businesses, which said you have to legally close. That legislation is no longer in play. What is in play is legislation that says the county is locked down. So the reason we're not closing it and we're offering service as usual, business as usual, is because we still have guests on park. We still have owners on park, and no doubt those guests and those owners who are currently on park will probably be there after Thursday. So we can't just sort of shut shop and send everybody home. So what we're going to be asking is if you're currently on park, or if you're on park before the restrictions kick in, and this is very important, I want to make this very clear, you need to go to the office in person along with the other members of your party, and you need to register your presence on the park. So if you're in caravan 22, I'm just making up a random caravan. I know there's no caravan 22 at Park Farm, but I'm not going to give out specific numbers, but let's just use an example. If you're in caravan 22 and there's you and your partner in the caravan, you both need to go to the office before 5 o'clock on Thursday, see either Sandra, Hayley or Diego and say, this is me, this is my partner, and we're just registering the fact that we're on park. Why do we need you to do that? Well, there are two reasons. One, it's so we as the owners of the park and our teams can be confident and assured that you were on the park prior to the lockdown restrictions kicking in. And also, having spoken to colleagues who own holiday parks, for example, in Bridgend in South Wales, which is subject to lockdown restrictions, they've experienced situations where they're getting visited from the police and local authorities checking to see who is on the park. Because as you can imagine, when it comes to restrictions of this nature, the first place people are going to look at businesses that attract people from outside the county. So if we can have a piece of paper that says, well, look, you know, we can confirm beyond all doubt that these people were present on the park before the lockdown kicked in, it's protecting us and it's protecting you. Because ultimately, if you're found to be on the park and you shouldn't be on the park, there are two issues that you face. The first and most important issue is that you're breaking the law, and that's a matter between you and the authorities. But secondly, and I want to make this clear like we did when Caerphilly went into lockdown and RCT and Bridgend and the other counties in South Wales, if we feel that or we discover that somebody's entered the park and entered the county illegally, then we will not hesitate to take very stern action against them in terms of their licence agreement, which could result in the removal of the caravan from the park. Now, I don't say that lightly, and it's something I don't think we will have to do. It's something that we've not had to do as of yet with all the other lockdown restrictions. I mean, if you look in our parks in West Wales, we've lost about 80 to 90% of our customers who are affected by the counties in South Wales. So they can't come to us. There's no lockdown restrictions on Pembrokeshire, for example, but most of our customers come from counties where there are lockdown restrictions. So we have to be very, very strict with this and say, look, if you're caught and you're on the park and you shouldn't be on there, then the advice we've had from our advisors is that we can go straight ahead and terminate the agreement, because you're putting lives at risk, you're putting our business at risk, and you're putting other people at risk, and there's no excuse for that at all. Having said that, we can only follow the guidance. The guidance says that the lockdown kicks in Thursday at 6 o'clock. So if you're on the park before the lockdown kicks in and provided you've registered, that's fine. The other thing I need to make clear as well is if you leave the park, if you leave the county of Denbighshire, you cannot come back into the county of Denbighshire. Now, where you've got to be very careful, is Denbighshire, as you know, for those who are on the park, and this thought is just coming to my mind now, Jim. So Denbighshire, Park Farm is in the county of Denbighshire. Mould, which is the nearest town, is about 7 miles away. That's in the county of Flintshire. Okay, so let's say that you're on the park. Let's say you're on the park today. Thursday comes and goes, the lockdown restrictions are in place, and you fancy popping to Mould to go to Tesco's. You can't do that because you're crossing the county lines. Okay, so you've got to be very, very careful about that. So if you're on the park, you can only stay in Denbighshire. So my advice would be, if you need to go shopping, go to Riffin, which is in Denbighshire. Don't go to Mould, which is in Flintshire, because you won't be allowed to come back in again. Now, obviously, we can't police where you go when you leave the park. It's not our job to do that. But we've got a great bunch of owners at Park Farm. We've got a great bunch of owners across all of our parks. I'm pretty certain that everybody will follow the guidance and won't put us in an awkward position as the owners and operators of the park. But I just need to make that absolutely clear. The other thing to say as well, and this is based on experience over the last few weeks of some questions and queries we've had come in from other caravan owners who are affected by the lockdowns in South Wales. So we've had, for example, we had somebody write into us 2 days ago saying, my upholsterer is from Swansea. Swansea's in lockdown. My caravan's due to be upholstered. It says on the guidance that you're allowed to travel in and out for work purposes. Can you travel? The answer from our perspective is no, because with the greatest will in the world, if we allow that to happen for one person, then all of a sudden we're going to find that people are going to be having the caravans reupholstered. They're going to be having all sorts of work carrying on. And then we'll also find the result of that is that people themselves who own the caravan will be doing the work themselves and classing that as work. So we've got to be very clear and specific about that. We're not making any exceptions at all. So hopefully that bit makes that part makes sense. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll reiterate some of the stuff I've said before we finish, just so it's crystal clear. And I'm not sure how many people we've got on this evening, Jen, but I'm sure there must be one or two questions that have come in.
We've got a fair few on, Thomas. So first question is from Kelly Stevenson, says, any idea how long this lockdown will last?
If you look on, Kelly, if you're at Park Farm, I've just sent out, or Sandra sent out an email, and on that email at the bottom there's a link to the Welsh Government website. There's a list of frequently asked questions on there, and one of the questions is how long will it last? And what it says is that it will be reviewed in 2 weeks. Now, the reality of the situation is that the other lockdowns that have been in effect in Wales prior to tonight's announcement, they've all gone beyond the 2 weeks. So I would be very surprised if in 2 weeks from now we're sitting here going, okay, you know, job done, you can come back to the park because the lockdown restrictions have been lifted. You know, Caerphilly now is approaching, but it's got to be approaching the 4th week, I guess, maybe. So I don't think it's going to be the 2 weeks, but the Welsh Government tend to review things every two to 3 weeks.
Okay, Gaynor Morrison asks, just to clarify, I've been here since July at Park Farm. Can I stay?
Yes. But I'd question the fact why you've been here since July. But yes, you can stay. But if you're enjoying your holiday home for holiday purposes only, and you're not using the caravan as your sole or main residence, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all, Gaynor.
Claire Molly asks, do you recommend that tourists take their awnings down tomorrow in case we aren't allowed on again before the 10th of November?
It's not a bad shout because Park Farm is high up. It's high up in the hillside, and when it's windy, and we do get the brunt of it there. And when when the weather goes a bit cold, we do sort of get snowed in. We've been snowed in Easter at Park Farm, and towards this time of year, as we head towards the autumn with the inclement weather, if you're able to do that, then yes, I would do that. If you can't, you can't. I wouldn't make a special journey just to take the awning down if you've got other priorities. But if you can, then it's not a bad shout.
Okay, Nina Wolverston Dutton asks, I have a postcode where there are restrictions, but live in a different county where there is none. If they go on lockdown, will it affect me?
I don't know where you're living, and I don't know. There's too many variables there, unfortunately, for me to answer that. I don't know. Is the honest answer. All I can say is look at your local authority's website. They tend to issue very clear and concise guidance. One of the issues we have as a nation at the moment, I don't want to start going into the politics of this, but there's a news article that was published on the BBC a few hours ago. Let me give you an example without sort of digressing too much. So if you look at the rate of infection in some areas of England, such as Birmingham, Dudley and Sandwell, compare that to the rates of infection, say, in Caerphilly. The rates of Caerphilly at the moment are currently lower than that of some of the areas in England. Those areas in England like Dudley, Sandwell, Solihull, Birmingham, they've got restrictions, not lockdown. So that means people from those areas can still travel freely across the border into Wales and enjoy their caravans, whereas the people in Caerphilly are completely locked down. Nobody's in, nobody's out, yet their rate of infection is lower. So I know that the First Minister is trying to work with the Prime Minister to try and get some sort of joined up legislation, joined up thinking, so that everything is the same for everybody. Because at the moment, sorry, my daughter's just interrupting me. What? You need to go to bed. Oh. No, I'm on TV. Sorry. She should be in bed now. She's got school tomorrow. Do you know what? She doesn't talk to me all day when she comes back from school. As soon as I go and do something like this, get to bed. I can't get you a place at the moment. She'll have to wait. I'll go and ask you what to do. Right. So, sorry, what I was saying was, with the restrictions in place, there are places in England that have higher infection rates or rates of infection versus places in Wales which are under lockdown restrictions. So it's not entirely fair the way in which it's working at the moment, but we can only stick to the guidelines and the legislation that's in place.
Okay, we've got a question here from Carl Tuckley, but I can answer this one for you, Thomas, because I know Carl is a guest here at Clarick, and he's just saying that he's booked a holiday for the 5th of October. Can we still come? At the moment, this is only affecting Park Farm. Okay, Clarick is safe, Cross Park, Grandray. It's at the moment it's only Park Farm. So Megan's dad. Hello, Megan. Well, how's your dad? It's likely restrictions will get worse rather than better. This is open-ended. If it freezes in November, what will happen? Re-drain down.
Don't know.
I'm not going to sit here and give you a politician's answer. Honestly, I don't know. At the moment, for us, the priority is getting the information out there, making people aware that they can't visit Park Farm after Thursday. Once we've had a chance and everyone else has had a chance to process that, we'll look at some of the intricacies surrounding drain downs and awnings and other things that are sort of unintended consequences of the lockdown. But we'll have to just wait a couple of days for everything just to settle and for everything to sink in.
Yeah, we've got a couple of people asking about drain down, so you've answered that one. Paul Lewis asks, we missed the start. We've just left to come, but was planning to shoot back down on Saturday to Park Farm. Is this against the rules?
It depends.
I'm not with. You have to be a bit more specific. If what you're saying is, Paul, that if you're at Park at the moment and you want to leave and come back on Saturday, then the answer to that is strictly no. You've got until Thursday. Thursday at 6 o'clock, you can't. Nobody can leave Denbighshire. Nobody can enter Denbighshire without a very valid and reasonable excuse, which is a list of those published on the government website.
Claire Westlake asks, as it is now South Wales and North Wales locking down, do you recommend owners in Claret close down caravans sooner rather than later?
No, we're not
going to be giving out that advice. I mean, look, we're very fortunate in Ceredigion because we have the lowest rate of infection across the whole of the United Kingdom. Things have gone a little bit pear-shaped lately because of the students coming back. I mean, that's another story entirely. I mean, I think there's been 2 confirmed cases in Aberystwyth University. And what I've said to people is if they were 2 confirmed cases on a holiday park in the Aberystwyth area, then you would have heard about that over every single media outlet across the country. But it seems to be because it's students involved, they seem to be getting a lot more sympathy than what the tourists do. But again, I'm not going to get political. That's another story for another day. But I certainly wouldn't recommend or advocate people in Ceredigion closing the caravans down just yet, because I think it's too early to preempt that that's going to happen.
Okay, Chev Parry asks, we're on the park at the moment. My husband is going to work for me and returning home in the evenings. Will he not be allowed to return after work on Thursday?
correct.
Sorry, I didn't understand that, Thomas.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
let's just try and make this really simple. After Thursday at 6 o'clock, you can't enter Denbighshire, you can't enter Flintshire, you can't enter Wrexham, you can't enter Conway. Equally, you can't leave those counties. So, imagine going to a nightclub and it's that time of the night and the doorman says you're either in or you're out. It's as simple as that. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out.
Okay, so we've got quite a few people asking about the drain downs. Robbie Campbell asks, will hospitality remain open during the lockdown for people who are on the park?
Yeah, I said that
at the beginning of the broadcast. So for us, it's business as usual. So we're not going to be sending any of the staff or any of the team home because there's no legal obligation for us to close. I mean, this in effect is the reverse scenario of what we encountered back in March when we was legally obliged to close. We're not legally obliged to close. The onus is now on individuals to not leave or enter the county. So if you're already on the park and you're enjoying Park Farm, then you can continue your stay and go home whenever it was you originally planned to go home, and we will still offer you a full service.
Vicky Thomas asks, we live in Denbighshire. Can we come and go to the van at Park Farm?
if you live in Denbighshire,
Yes, you can.
Another question about shutting the water off. Sue Parker, hi. Quick
I
question.
just want
I just want to be clear on that as well. So for that to be acceptable with us, your Denbighshire address would need to be registered on your owner's account and on your license agreement. So, what I don't want to do is have a situation where people go, oh, yeah, I do live in Denbighshire, but on the address is different on your system. No, it's got to be the address which is registered on the system for obvious reasons.
Sue Parker, hi. Quick question. Me and my partner are currently on Park Farm and intended to go home to our main residence on Sunday. Is this allowed as long as we register with reception here? Thanks.
Yeah, you obviously.
There's nothing stopping you from going home. You'll need to register before Thursday because you'll be on the park after the lockdown kicks in. Once you leave the park to go home on Sunday, you won't be permitted to return until the lockdown ends.
Dave Lewis. So if we come down Thursday before 5 o'clock, can we leave after a few days and not come back?
Yeah.
Jenny Harrison wanted to say, thank you for everything. We're lucky enough to have made the most of our time since July, but my partner is on chemo, so he has to go back to Cheshire for treatment. Oh, good luck, Jenny.
Yeah, you're doing the best of that one.
And, sorry, I've got to get close. I haven't got my glasses. I need to get closer to see this name because it's Sayarise, I think. Sayarise Philippe. How long will this last? We don't know.
How long do you think it is?
From your mother-in-law. I've got a message from your mother-in-law. I think you're both doing a wonderful job each week, keeping everyone informed of things that are happening straight away. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Derek.
Again, Richard Blur's asking, we're at Clarick at the moment. We're here for 5 days. This only involves Park Farm. It's nothing to do with Clarick, Grandray, Cross Park, Woodland Vale, etc., etc. Nicola Davis, I'm a key worker and travel for work and sometimes in Pembrokeshire. I'm in Grandray, so if I'm in an area, am I allowed to go alone and drain down as can't see this lockdown ending before Christmas?
No.
Megan's dad again. Surely people staying after Thursday can leave the farm but not be allowed to leave Denbighshire. You've already answered that. Yeah. And that's it so far.
There you go.
If you have any more
So
questions,
I think that, put them in. I don't want to take up too much of people's valuable time, especially at evening. Me and Joanna, we're watching The Fall at the moment. We just got into that on Netflix. We watched the first episode last night. It's a bit of an old one, but it's sort of like set up really well. So we got that to catch up with tonight.
There's a new one, Thomas. There's a new one on Netflix, Ratched.
Okay. Yeah,
good.
It's about the nurse from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So it's like brilliant. We've started that. Brilliant.
Okay. Brilliant.
Nothing more coming through.
No, okay. If that's it, then I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I just want to, just quickly reiterate and give a brief synopsis of what I've said. If you're on park currently, you need to go and register as soon as you possibly can. We'll only accept registrations in person, so please don't phone, please don't email, because we need to validate and see for ourselves with our own eyes that you and the other members of your party are there. We don't expect anybody to come onto the park after Thursday at 6 o'clock. If you do, then you're breaking the law and you're also in serious breach of your licence agreement. If you're on the park, you can go anywhere you want within the county of Denby, but just be careful because Mould is in Flintshire. So technically you can't go to Mould and come back again, but you could, for example, go to Ripon, which is the same distance in the opposite direction. So you need to bear that in mind. Stuff like drain downs and awnings, we need to have time to sort of think about the best approach for that. Let's take each 2 weeks, because that's when the review, let's take each 2 weeks as they come. No doubt we'll be putting out more information as and when it comes along. One thing I would politely request is, I understand there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of questions, but we get our information from the same place as what you guys do, and that is from the government website. So we haven't got like a secret channel or a secret person we can contact in the Welsh government to ask them for information. So we do get a lot of questions, and they're understandable because people want these questions answering. But a lot of the times, the answers you can find are on the website, because we need to make sure that the sole focus of our team, especially now at Park Farm, is making sure everyone in the park stays safe, but they can sort of carry on with their normal day-to-day job, because they are, at the moment, not just Park Farm, but the other parks in general, they are receiving a lot of questions relating to subjects which, to be fair, the answers are there on the website. And what I can say is, as a general thing, we have a lot of emails coming from people who are in lockdown areas who have what I would class as individual and unique circumstances. So they will then send us an email explaining those individual and unique circumstances, and at the end say, does this mean I can come and visit the park? And the answer in every case is, unfortunately, no, it's not, because we can only go by the guidance and the legislation. It's not for us to choose one person or one family over another based on their individual circumstances. It's not our job to do that.
Another couple of questions have come through. If we've only got a short season and we end up going back to lockdown before we shut our van up, can we visit the day after our season ends to lock up the van when restrictions are lifted? Say again?
I'm just trying to process that. So the day after, so I'd imagine then you're probably going to be talking about seasonal touring.
No, this is actually a Claric owner.
Again, that's a difficult question to answer at the moment because Claric isn't in lockdown. So it's a hypothetical, and it's very difficult to answer hypotheticals because look at tonight as an example. I sat there having my tea, and all of a sudden my phone beeps, and Denbish has gone into lockdown. This thing is moving at such a fast pace, and rules and laws are changing. I mean, look at the thing with the 10 o'clock with the pubs. I don't know if you've seen what's happening. I saw a video of Liverpool the other night. It was about 10:05, and the city centre was absolutely ramajam with people who had left the booze at about 9:30, gone straight to the supermarket and the off-whites, and they're continuing the party outside. So I don't think shutting the pubs at 10 o'clock is necessarily the right way to get around things. It's difficult, isn't it? It really is. I just want to thank everybody, by the way, since Thursday, so it's coming up, 5 days now, where we've had the restrictions on the opening and closing times, licensed establishments in Wales kick in. One thing, again, I'm gonna give you an example now. I'll give you an example of something that I encountered the other night, and you tell me. I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on this at home. So we normally get a Tesco delivery of a supermarkets are available, and the last few weeks our Tesco delivery is it happened on a Sunday, anytime between 10 and 11 o'clock. And when the Tesco delivery turned up the other day, it was just before 10 o'clock, and the first thing he had to do was get the alcohol and give me that first, because he had a note from head office to say he could not deliver alcohol after 10 o'clock.
And it takes him about 25 minutes to get all the alcohol off for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was it.
I only got a third of what I ordered because and he was still unloading it. But no, but I mean that's where we're at, people. That is where we're at. You know, you can't have alcohol delivered, prepaid for and delivered by your Tesco or your Asda delivery driver after 10 o'clock. I've got to thank people as well for wearing the masks. The face. I've got to stop saying masks. They're actually face coverings. So again, I just want to reiterate this. For those of you who are going to be visiting the parks, the very few of you that are left who can visit the parks who are not subject to the restrictions, what I would say, I'm just going to change the subject slightly. I've got a theory. I think, and this is just coming to my head now, I think the reason why those counties in North Wales have gone into lockdown is because they're worried about some of the stuff that's happening across the border. They're looking at the infection rates across the border in the northwest of England. So I think what they're saying is, look, Boris, if you don't put those areas into lockdown, then we'll put our areas into lockdown and we'll stop people coming to us. Do you know what I mean, Jem?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. I
think it's sort of like, you know, it's evolution. You know, it's a battle of wills between the two governments. But going back to the face coverings, let's have a look here. So I took a picture of it. So again, the law in Wales now is when you go into a licensed venue, when you walk into the venue, well, basically any point where you're not sat at your table, so walking in, walking out, going to the toilet or going to the smoking area, you need to have a face covering on. So we understand that there are certain individuals who have disabilities, hidden disabilities, for example, which may prevent them from wearing a face covering. And let's have a look. Here it is. Don't know if you can see that, but this is one of our customers. I took a picture of it the other day. So he's got one of these sunflower cards. You can use it as a card that fit in your purse, your wallet, but you can also use it as a lanyard. I'll make sure I spot the right way.
Yeah, careful.
And that's the other side of it there. I don't know if you can read the text on that.
My hidden disability makes me exempt from wearing a face covering.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know we've had sort of an incident tonight happen at one of our venues where we've had a couple who are really, really, really kicked off about the fact that they shouldn't be wearing a face covering. One of the persons kicking off said she was severely asthmatic, which I've got no doubt she probably is. But when when we look back on the CCTV and we saw the energy and the effort she was putting into, to say how severely asthmatic she was, I'm surprised she didn't have an asthma attack. But we're not there. We're not medically qualified. We're not there to judge people. But what we would say is try and make our lives a little bit easier. And by our staff and our colleagues, by just getting yourself one of those cards or something you can show us that shows you've gone to the effort to show that you are exempt from wearing a face mask. Because if you don't, then we are going to question you. And like I said, last week, it does give rise to awkward conversations, and it does become a battle of wills. Ultimately, the discretion is with us as a licensee to admit or to refuse entry, and it does put us in an awkward position where we've got people arguing with us at the door that they shouldn't have to wear a face mask. Well, if that's the case, get something just to show us that.
Well, apparently you can get the cards from the Hidden Disability website.
There you go.
There you go. And apparently also from Sainsbury's and Morrison's. But I would imagine you need some sort of... Yeah, apparently not. Only Sainsbury's and Morrison's do them. But I would imagine you'd need some sort of proof that you have got the disability at all. You wouldn't just be able to pick one up, or else everybody would be getting them.
I don't know. I mean, we're fully aware. Prior to lockdown, we're fully aware that there are many people out there with hidden disabilities. I have members of my family who have hidden disabilities. I know that it's yourself with your other half, he has a hidden disability. I know it's a source of anxiety when you go to certain places, certain establishments. To give you an example, going through airport security is a big thing for people with certain types of hidden disabilities, which is why these lanyards with the sunflowers came in the first place. So, if you are able to make our lives a little bit easier and get yourself one of those cards, I think it'll just make things a lot easier. The other thing as well, before we go, is can you please all download the NHS COVID app for when you're going in and out of the venues. All of our venues have got QR codes, and it's literally a 2-minute job. I know that there have been some issues with older versions of iOS, certain versions of iOS and certain versions of Android don't accept it, but for the majority of people, you can download the app, put it on your phone, and all you need to do then is just give it one of those when you go into the venue, and away you go.
We've got another question about the lockdown. It's actually someone from Clarick, and says, if a person's in Clarick and lives in Wrexham, does that person have to leave the site before Thursday?
So again,
if a person is in Clarick and lives in Wrexham, does that person have to leave the site before Thursday?
That's actually
a very, very good point. Yes, the answer is yes. Yeah, so it's the reverse situation. It is a reverse situation. So if you live in one of those counties in North Wales, the same as if you live in a county in South Wales that's in lockdown, then you need to make sure you leave. And don't forget, you've got to give yourself enough time to get back into the county before the lockdown kicks in.
Okay. No, nothing else. Everybody's just saying about visors and about the cards, etc. But no more questions regarding lockdown.
At the start of this, see my beard, see that bit there? Not a bit of grey on it.
I just looked at my picture on this, and because I'm so grey in my beard, if I take my microwave away, it actually looks like I've got a handlebar moustache. Look.
Yeah, it does actually, yeah.
But no, it is.
I'm going really grey. Look at that. Oh God. Yeah.
No, I think mine's going to come off.
Right. Okay. Well, listen. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Thank you for joining us short notice. We'll keep you updated as much as we possibly can, but just keep checking out the government's website.
I think I've just had a message from the wife. I think it's actually from Vale Holiday. Your wife. It's from Vale Holiday.
I was going to say, it'd be a bit difficult to be from your wife, wouldn't it?
It's from Vale Holiday Parks. It says, "Tell Thomas to stop talking. I want to watch the fall." There you go.
Has she posted it on the official Vale Holiday Parks account?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
There we go.
She'll probably ask for a cup of tea or something now as well.
Well, you got to get a plate for
Well, I'm going.
All right, bud.
I've got to go and get the plate, cup of tea. Thank you very much. Stay safe, everybody, and no doubt we'll give you a further update by the weekend. Thank you.
Good night, all.